Shalom, peace. How is everybody doing? My name is Yeshaya Yisrael. This is an unusual topic to touch upon as one, an Israelite, two, as a black man, three, as a person who hardly ever talks about politics and so forth and so on. You understand? Nonetheless, brothers and sisters, we want to sit there and touch upon the subject for reason and purposes. And it is called the dodohead things Trump said, a partial listing. Now, though nobody is perfect and everyone has said things that were out the box or crazy, even in the Bible. Like when Reuben suggested or stated to Jacob, well, if I don't bring back your son, kill my two sons. That was a dodo-head thing to say of Reuben. You understand? For Reuben to say that. Like no disrespect intended when the great man Aaron said that he took the gold and he threw it in the fire and out came this calf. That's a dodo-head thing to say. You understand? So even as Israel, we know that there are certain things that were said in the past by ancient Israelites that was under the category of a dodo-head kind of matter. Now, brothers and sisters, when you are a said leader, when you are a said person of influence, a person who holds a position of power and so forth and so on, there are certain things that you cannot say. There are certain things that you should not say. There are certain things, because it says the wise know what is acceptable. So you just can't say anything and everything's supposed to be all right because, well, after all, we're all the same as humans. So you can't, when you're at a certain level, just sit back and think that you can just hop up and down from said position by saying certain things that people will be like, question mark, what are you talking about? You understand? So what you say, what you speak upon, and what you say when you're speaking upon something, in a nutshell, is how people will know how to deal with you. You understand? If a person is speaking upon being an architect and they speak about things of such, you understand? As far as somebody stating, shalom, brother, Trump got your vote. The reason why I personally don't even vote, this is just me, certainly for the presidency, is because of the simple fact the electoral college picks the president. See, it's not, say, correct me if I'm wrong, like the borough president, say, of Brooklyn in New York, or the governor or the mayor or so like that. Once it comes down to that. We want to get into this right here. This is not to change people's minds on anything. This here is to simply state what it is and a fact of what it is. This presentation is since the current president told women of color to go back to where they came from, while his ancestry goes back, not to the United States, but to Germany. See, this is a person who forgot his history. If this person was said to be of color, a quote said black man, they would say he's a coon. He's selling out. You understand? They would say, forgetting the fact that his dad and granddad ancestry, as Israel, you are what your father is. We always hear that, which is accurate. You are what your father is. So how do you, whose ancestors come from Germany, tell somebody to go back where they came from while you are in an elected official as a leader? That's a person who's not using his noggin upstairs. If a person of color had been in that same position of power and said that forgetting, just throwing it out there, that that person's ancestry came from Africa or something like that, they would say that person is a sellout. So why will it not apply to this clown who forgot to remember where his daddy and his daddy came from? You understand? So this is something that we want to talk about in that particular regard. Let's go on. The reason for this part one. Due to the sad situation of Black women not having confidence in the Black man and feeling that this guy is a solution for, quote, niggas to get it together, a wake-up call, this presentation is made to set a record straight. The person in this person in the 1970s was guilty of making sure Black people were not given residences. See, you have to study people to see a person's history. Like the name of this channel is called Moray Yeshaya History Lessons. You see? So I can't sit there and neglect someone's history and then follow that coattail, because he being a millionaire, billionaire, and so forth and so on. When you deal with banks, they look at your credit history. They judge you based on your past. So if this dude is now in his 70s and is getting exposed left and right and left and right, there's something wrong with this picture here. I have heard it said that he is supposed to be a wake-up call for our people to sit there and get it together. Where is your position to sit there and be a light, to be a wake-up call to your brother or sister? You were looking for Martha, quote unquote, to do it. You don't see something wrong with that picture? You don't see that there's something obtuse with looking to somebody who can say to your mother, sister, daughter, go back to where you came from, nigga. But that's supposed to be your wake-up call. When we've been talking about leaving this land as ill since the 1960s. And the greater Black people in America been talking about going and leaving this land since the 1930s. So he coming with a concept that says go back to where you came from. That's the same thing Lincoln wanted to do. Congress stopped Lincoln with his Back to Africa movement because they knew good and well they was going to need our people coming out of slavery to sit there and be influential in the Industrial Revolution. You understand? So this is something that we want to sit there and point out for edification purposes. To sit back and perhaps think, as some say, he's a wake-up call, is just as intelligent as the lady who had her son handcuffed when he did something bad at home and led out by the cops as a way to teach him a lesson. There was a woman online who had her son handcuffed by the police just so he could sit there and learn a lesson. Kind of foolishness is that? You understand? The upbringing I came up with, may she rest in peace for my mother, is one will be left as an asset, not a liability. You understand? So to sit there and be okay to put someone else over you, if you know yourself as Yisrael or Israel, it says you shall not have one that is not of your brethren over your people in the Torah of the Most High God. Nationalism is in the Torah, for those who understand what we're talking about. Israel by law could not have an Ammonite king over them. And if they were to have a king over them, this king was to write a copy of the law so his heart His heart will not be over his brethren, not his servants, not his congregants, and so forth and so on, but over his brethren, not his peasants, not his eyes. So these are things, brothers and sisters, that we want to sit there and talk about in regard for edification purposes. In the 1970s, there were women who brought up charges against this dude about his practices of having people being able to get a place of residence. So what do they who know that of him? They show one picture of him with some lady up there talking about, see, he gave her something. So I'm supposed to forget about the charges that was brought against him in the past without him making any, what the law of Israel say, restitution. You understand? If I steal $2 from my friend, just throwing that out there, and then I sit there and feed somebody else something, that does not give one a correct solace to sit there and just say, well, that takes care of it. Now, I know in the Apocrypha, it says alms, ALMS, is an atonement for sin. But what sin is that talking about? So you can't play games once it comes down to that. You can't sit there and offend and disrespect such as this guy here has done. And you cannot love them and yours. It just won't work. You understand? It just can't be. Lincoln said that. Lincoln said the black man, white man is not equal. He said that after he supposedly was freeing the people who were slaves. You understand? So let's go on. So we can sit there and get into what we're talking about, because for some weird reason, there seems to be people who want to sit there and understand and sympathize with this person here. But before we get a little deeper in this, I want to state that if I came online and was recorded as saying I can grab a woman by her peak, double, you know what, why? Maury Yeshaya's image will go down the tubes. Did you know that? How many people will want to subscribe to the channel of a brother saying he could grab a woman by her P, bleep, 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 Y? And it was recorded. How many people would say, you know what? I like that guy. There was a Unity Sabbath event that happened this weekend. You understand? And I promise you, if I ever was noted as saying online, there would be definitely more than 10 or so people giving a brother the side eye. If I was ever recorded as saying, I can grab a woman by her P, bleep, 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 Y, like this guy has said. I have a daughter. No, you cannot just grab women by their genitalia. You just can't do that, B. Brother, person, politician, whatever standard you fit in one's life. You just cannot say, this is what we're talking about, the things that said. You understand? There's no way that I can promote businesses on any channel, which is a different channel than this one, and there is a person after Shabbat that passed that gave me a hug and say, oh, Shalom Adon, Toda, thanks for promoting the business. That happened after this past Shabbat down here in North Carolina. That wouldn't happen from a woman or even any man if I was online and recorded as saying I could grab a woman by her P, bleep, 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 Y. It will go down the tubes. One's credibility, you in your Hebrew books can sit there and go to the left. Miss me with that quote unquote more. And everybody knows that's exactly what would happen. But why does this guy say it and get a pass? Because Israel is a homeborn slave. That's why. Let's go on. The reason for this, part two, due to the fact there are black men who support Trump, saying Trump 2020, this presentation is made. The fact black men are not actually talking about men, such as Thurgood Marshall. Okay, you don't respect Obama. However, there are other great people, from Robert Smalls to Granville Woods to Elijah McCoy. Look them up. Look up Granville Woods, Robert Smalls, and Elijah McCoy. Look them up as you see this dude here looking up, so we can see and understand where we're talking about and where we're coming from for edification purposes. Robert Smalls, Granville Woods, and Elijah McCoy. You may want to look these people up. You understand? Let's go on. Trump said he is the best American president. Now look at this guy that you see right here, pictured on the right-hand side. That's Thomas Jefferson. There are black people today saying they are the descendants of this man here. Did you know that? Now, Trump lied about his own particular aspect. It said that he's the greatest or the best American president. So if you want to look at American history and see about the aspect of what would have made, quote, make America great again, Thomas Jefferson in the early 19th century was responsible for what they called the Louisiana Purchase. Because see, in 1776, they had the 13 colonies, which was then making up what they called the United States. You understand? When Jefferson came along as president and did what is referred to as the Louisiana Purchase, that made America greater in distance. That made America greater in distance. This person that's now currently on the seat as said president, right? We're going to point out he doesn't even know the parts of America that he's the president over. That's why I call it the dodo-head things that one says. It's one thing, as we point out, the Saul and the David mind. See, Saul in the Bible only saw his block. David saw beyond the borders of Israel that was already established under Saul. He had expansion on his mind. Thomas Jefferson, and I point him out because he too was involved as a slave master. And I picked the people to show the evidence for reason and purposes. Because they're, oh, well, Trump was racist. Many of them were. Practically all of them were. Woodrow Wilson in the 20th century showed a movie called Birth of a Nation inside the White House, in which the making of the KKK was shown. So, when one talks about the wickedness of somebody, the stupidity of somebody, it kind of makes it look weaker when you got to deflect to talk about somebody else. See, when I was a child, right, my mother was talking to me about me. She was addressing me. But to deflect from the attack, quote unquote, verbally, quote unquote, attack on me, I said, well, I'm not walking around like the guys outside. I'm currently in North Carolina, and I'm not trying to be funny. Maybe she reached back while being in New York to South Carolina with that hit. I'm not talking about the people outside. I'm talking to you about you. But instead of you trying to see the light that's being brought to you, you want to remain in darkness by saying, what about that person's darkness? You just realize, or maybe you didn't realize, If I'm talking to you about you, and you talk about someone else while I'm talking about you, you did not defend your case. And that is, not to be funny, in the scriptures, what Adam attempted to do to the Most High. Mihigila kata arum. Who told thee that thou was naked? Did you eat from the tree that I told you to not eat from? Haisha asha natatali hinanali wa okal. The woman you gave me, I'm not talking to you about a woman I gave you, Adam. See, what Adam was trying to do was wiggle his way out to deflect it. Well, it's the woman, it's her. But she had nothing to do with that conversation. So the Most High, seeing the game, the foolishness that Adam was trying to run upon him, this portion is for you, woman, this portion is for you. Hanakas hu hishiani wa akol. The woman said, Hanakas, the serpent, who hishiani, he beguiled me. Wa okal, and I ate. I'm not talking about you in the nakas or the serpent, kawa eve. I'm talking to you about you. Stop trying to talk about someone else when you are the one that is in the hot seat. It doesn't make your case look strong. If you're in the hot seat, the best thing to do is confess, apologize, just like you do in speaking in general at the job. That's my fault. Apologize. It will not happen again, sir. That kind of thing when you do at work, in most cases. Don't say when you're in the hot seat, I'm going to talk about somebody else. Like my mother, may she rest in peace, told me. I'm not talking about the people outside. I'm talking to you about you. And it makes you look weak as a man when you got to sit there and talk about someone else when you're the one in the hot seat. Believe me, it doesn't look like ish amatwa chazak, a man of courage and strength. You don't look like a man of kazak and amat, of strength and courage. At that point, you look like a man that is koleh and kalash, sick and weak. Because instead of saying, as David or David said, katati, I sinned, you're going to perhaps try to wiggle your way around that situation, and you can't do that. So getting back now in this regard, Trump said he's the best American president. This person did not sit there and expand the borders of what you call America, the United States. So like Jefferson did, and Jefferson was not righteous himself. University of Virginia, he helped make it into being, and it still exists to this day. And Jefferson died in 1826. Thomas Jefferson died in 1826. The school that he established is still there in Virginia. Remember that for reason and purposes. And therefore, what I want to do is highlight that part, because we may have to scroll back to this in regards with the things that this dodo had said, because it's a shame that some of us think that he's some kind of hero to make us wake up, because we don't see us waking us up. Jefferson banned the international slave trade to the United States. He did not stop the domestic slave trade from South Carolina to Louisiana and back and forth, and so forth and so on. He stopped the international slave trade coming up out of Africa in 1807. That's what he was responsible for, while still holding on to over 600 Black people as slaves. So I just wanted to point this out for reason and purposes. This is one of the people that this guy that's currently in DC said that he's better than. Yet there's no school still in existence with that. He did not spend the territory of the country and make it greater from sea to shining sea, quote unquote. And in regards with the slavery matter, this is a dude, as pointed out, he told people to go back where they came from. Not realizing you're talking over 70% of the people that were enslaved came against their will. How are you going to be guilty of kidnapping and then, when done, just go back to where you came from? You know what that's called? Okay, ho, I'm done. Go back, scoot, scatter. I've used you for what I needed you for. That's what that means. Next slide, please. The matter with Obo. That's what I called him when he became president. Obo. You understand? Not a fan of any of these presidents myself. I am not. You understand? What he did that America would say is great or good, because great don't always mean good. You understand? Is about the healthcare reform, which this now guy wants to sit there and get rid of. You understand? By having what they refer to as Obamacare and making people obligated to have some kind of health insurance is similar to when they want to give you a ticket for not having a seatbelt on because they're saying this in regards to your safety. There's nothing wrong with having health insurance. Now, American stimulus plan. That is to say to try to push over 500,000 jobs to try to sit there and get the people to work. Because you got to remember what happened before him. That's why history is important. See, when they had the housing market situation in 2008, that being Bush's second term, and Bush Jr. spent more money, he being the 43rd president, than all of them combined from Washington all the way down to Clinton. So after Bush went in with the banks and them having what they call a surplus, he sat there and took that out. And Bush Jr., in one of his speeches about the State of the Union, said in the future, what is referred to as Social Security would not be there. Now, why did I sit there and pick this guy here, Obo, as I call him? It's because knowing good and well the Electoral College picks the president, so our vote for that really doesn't hold that much weight, if at all, to be candid on that. Right? That means all the supporters of Trump, their votes too did not really sit there and count on that. Just like all of the votes that Obo got did not really sit there and count on that because the president is said to be elected, not selected, and so forth. Or selected, not elected, sorry. Right? But the words, the ideology, the spirit that Mr. Trump comes with is what the people are feeding upon. They know their vote don't count like that, but he knows how to rev the people up to sit there and say, send her home, send her home. He knows what he's doing with that. When Obo was in office, he's a coon, a sellout. Her woman's really a man. Those are not really his kids. He wasn't even born here. His middle name is Hussein. We did not, as quote people of color, take the same energy of seeing someone that looked like you in a position of power and use it to a greater advantage like they do now with this person that's currently in there. They feed off of Trump's spirit, not his righteousness. You understand? That's something to sit there and take to heart. And just like anything else, Bush messed up the economy, put what looks like to be a brother in there, let him try to fix something up, and then, well, bye-bye, toodaloo, we used you, thank you for your services, bye-bye, take care, now we're going back to what we were about in the first place. Put this person in there because just as it may be said after, quote, somebody great or good or who made a difference can sit there and be said, wow, that person did that. What can I do after that person did that? They couldn't find nobody who was willing to go into Wall Street, stop giving out these dodohead loans to people for houses that they can't pay back. You understand? That's what we want to point out. Now, in quote fairness, Jefferson had, as stated, over 600 people of color as slaves. In fairness, pointing it out, this person here, Obo, was responsible for what they refer to as Monsanto, which is bad for your health to be made into law. So I want to emphasize that one is not trying to say yay for this one, nay for that one. I'm saying, brothers and sisters, when we got to look at this right here as a sign of hope, that's bad. And let's see why a brother is presenting it in that particular regard. Women who accuse Trump of sexual harassment. This is just a partial listing. Bridget Sullivan, 1. Jill Hoff, 2. Cassandra Searles, 3. Tasha Dixon, 4. Jessica Leeds, 5. Natasha Stoynoff, 6. Mariah Bellado, 7. Lisa Boyne, 8. Samantha Holvey, 9. And this is just a partial listing of the woman who said that he did what he is guilty of, according to them. In some of those cases, he said, look at her. Would you think I would want to sleep with that? That was his response to some of the allegations made by some of the women. That they may have not been, quote, pretty enough or, quote, fine enough to even sit there and be worthy of his overweight, orange-looking self. Where is the humility in that? That is not there. See, it's one thing to say, well, you know, a person can speak your mind, and a person can sit there and let it be known, and that person, yeah, you have no filter. But you know what happens? Right? Even in health, when there's no filter, you get all the dirt that comes out. Like I remember seeing spaghetti or so being put inside of the drain and the water was being let out. That's like a filtering process. But if you on championing for a person with no filter, you're going to get all of the stuff that is not intended to be there in the first place. The slop and everything else. You got to have a filter in life. That's why Ecclesiastes says, a time to gather stones and a time to cast stones away. You're filtering things out. People who don't say in their home, filter things out are referred to as hoarders. They just gather and gather and gather and gather. You understand? If this person has over 9 people over the years of being said to be guilty of sexual harassment, and if an Israelite brother on Facebook, Twitter, or anything else so much as ask a sister for a loan, in many cases, she copied and pasted it and showed everybody, this bum ass asked me for money. I need to tell that nigga where to get a job at. That's has happened with us as a people. You understand? To where a male will not ask a female for money, but people will be standing behind and champion for a person said to be guilty of this kind of sexual harassment. That's the problem. You got to fix home first. Everyone in there, and even more that I mentioned in this slide right here, or his sister. And I think we know what I mean by I say his sister. Ayana ain't there. Keisha ain't there. Tawana ain't there. Takesha is not there. Shaniqua is not there. Tanisha and Tamisha are not there. You follow what I mean when I say his sister? Let's go. Things that this person has said. Right? Now, this is why I call this one here the dodo head things Trump says. Let's go. He said the Continental Army took over airports. Now, why does that become important? Because the Continental Army that he was talking about, brothers and sisters, was the people that was in the Revolutionary War in the 18th century. Understand? There was, brothers and sisters, no airport at that time. So when he said, end quote, brothers and sisters, that the Continental Army took over the airports. He said that this year, July 4th. There were no airports for the Continental Army to take over. You're not thinking, you a fool. I can't stand behind that, personally. This guy said one can grab women by the vagina. And of course, that's not what he said. But I know if I were to even repeat some of his vulgar wording, I will be getting an email, brother, you are more you should not even be using those words. And you're right, especially when you're presenting something in regards to truth and edification. So what truth and edification is this guy coming with? Because just this month, the month of what is called July, he said that the Continental Army took over the airports. There were no airports in the 1770s for them to take over. But this person here, while saying make the country great again, was a draft dodger. He did not go into the wars. He did not heed to the calling from Uncle Sam. But he's going to tell you to sit there and make it great. Now, I ain't standing behind somebody like that. He said teachers that's supposed to be should, sorry about that spelling, should carry guns. Really? He said in public schools, teachers should carry guns because there are students who carry guns. Instead of filtering out the students who carry guns, having metal detectors like I saw when I was in high school, this person's solution is to say, let the teacher carry guns. Are we serious? You can't be serious. But he was. This guy said he spoke to the president of the Virgin Islands. The American Virgin Islands, correct me if I'm wrong, consist of St. Thomas, St. Croix, and St. John. You don't need a passport to go to that part of the Caribbean. It's America's Caribbean or American Virgin Islands. But he said he spoke to the president of the Virgin Islands. How? Are you the president? Which means that you're the one who presides, but you don't know what area you're presiding over. See, This is why I said about this particular aspect here. And I want to highlight, I'm going to circle this one here. Right? Louisiana Purchase. That's the person who made America great in landmass in that regard. That was Jefferson, who he said he was better than, because he said he was better than all of them in the past before him. This person, while the Virgin Islands was not part of the United States in the days of Jefferson, did not know within the past 3 or 4 years what he was the president of. In regards to what I see in the comments about that, I want to read the comment and speak upon that. Thomas Jefferson was far worse devil than Trump. That doesn't change the fact of what we're talking about today. If I'm saying, if I'm talking to, I'm just using this out there about you, and you talking about somebody else, that doesn't support anybody else's stance. You understand? Where's the wisdom in that? Where's the wisdom in talking about somebody else to sit there and say, well, this person was worse than that? And if we know, quote unquote, choosing the lesser of two evils, as some say, you're still choosing evil. There's no good that comes from a person who does not know what he's the president and presiding over of. That's foolishness. How can any logic come from a person as a said president who does not know what he presides over? So let me explain what I mean when I say that. All righty. President. Preside. You see the connection? The president presides over a particular aspect. If he doesn't know that he is the one who presides over the Virgin Islands, then how in the world should I be able to sit there and follow him? Because he doesn't know where to take anybody. How are you a leader? What leading qualities do you have when you don't even know what you're presiding over? You a fool. Then it goes on to say, he did not know that he was or is the president of P.R. which is now called Puerto Rico. And as a person who travels and flies, right? The economy would do better if you were to promote traveling to the places that people don't even need passports for. So you can get the feel of the Caribbean, the feel of the islands, the feel of waking up in warm weather every morning, and you don't even have to sit there and leave the country. But you, in your racism, and your stupidity and hatred, wisdom like that doesn't appeal to you. You understand? The wisdom of saying, I preside over this land here, come to this land and still be at home, quote unquote home, and you can still keep the money inside the same country. You are a fool. The person also said that Mexico will build the wall. Remember that one? That was part of his campaign statement. And Mexico's going to do it. They don't know they're going to do it, but they're going to do it. Really? What did they say in Mexico? Two things. One, the former president said, he's not building that such and such wall. We're going to keep the language clean. The person that came after him said, we, Mexico, will build the wall when you give us back Texas. Since then, from the studies or readings I've been doing, I ain't seen him talk much about that wall thing after that. You understand? Because that's why history is important. Texas was part of what we call Mexico. California was part of what we call Mexico. Oregon, Washington State was what we call part of Mexico. You understand? So what the current president of Mexico stated is the wall will be built as soon as you give them back Texas. You don't really hear much in the media about that because that president went historical upon them because they know that this one that's over there in Washington does not know history very well. Once you said that the Continental Army took over the airports and you're talking about the Revolutionary War, you're dangerous. You can't lead a military and not even know the history of such. You don't have an army. In that regard, as a poor leader, what you have is a gang. Next slide, please. Things that Trump said, part two. He said there were good and bad people on the matter of Charlottesville in Virginia where one person was murdered. Well, there was good and bad people there. Really? On both sides? Amazing. These are the things, the dodohead things that this person has said. But there are those who feel maybe in the need of a leader, that person, well, he ain't still that bad. You know what that sounds like? The woman who called the police on the guy and then turned right around the next night and then go with him inside the house and chill like ain't nothing happened. That's what that sounds like. This guy referred to black football players who kneeled during the national anthem as sons of B word. You remember that? With the Kaepernick thing? Oh, those are sons of bloop bloop word. Really? See, he can't keep a staff too long. Like his body, his advisors, they keep quitting on him. They have been known to have to lie for him. And like Michael Cohen is now incarcerated. You understand? Omarosa was supposed to be the representative in regards to, quote, black people or African-American minorities in the Trump White House. I don't know who our replacement was. I didn't look that up or whatever like that. But who's supposed to be that person now? I'll tell you what it is. It's the people online and social media that think that he's going to sit there and be a good person. He has a bunch of people who still sit there and following him, regardless of the fact that he can sit there and damn near lie and say he knew nothing of David Duke. Remember David Duke? That's the person in the 1990s. That's why I love history, that was running for president, but he was part of that Klan member. But he's going to say, I don't know about David Duke. I bet you don't. You understand? The same person who said he would date his daughter. I have a daughter. You understand? Ain't no way in the world I can never sit back and fathom and think, though she looks more like her mother than she does me, and I think her mother is a very beautiful woman, ain't no way in the world I can sit there and look at my own child and say, hey, look at her. I would date her if she wasn't my daughter. Stay away from that pedophile. That's why I pointed this out now, because now with this Jeffrey Epstein thing that's coming up, and he being a friend with this Trump guy from way back in the day, it speaks about, in the Torah, about bringing iniquity to remembrance. See, because Epstein did not sit there and just act alone with those females, those girls, those children. You understand? So now when you sit back and look at this kind of character, Epstein and Trump were buddies since the 1990s, or certainly before that. So when you're dealing with a person who said he would date his daughter, we got a problem. I don't want, see, this is why I'm like, if you ever notice, like on my channel or my Facebook. I don't really like show pictures of my children. Well, my daughter only got one child. I don't really show pictures like that because you got pervs in this earth, man. You understand? There are some perverts in this earth. There are people who actually believe once she becomes in her menstrual cycle, then she's eligible to just be married and have a child. You understand? There are straight up and down some wicked individuals in this earth. So when you up there, regardless of the fact of his daughter being a grown woman, that's not the necessarily criteria in that regard. But you sitting up there talking about, look at my daughter, she has a beautiful body. That's what he said. I would date her if she wasn't my daughter. Are you sick? Really? You would date your daughter if that wasn't your daughter. So your marriage, do you not sit there and talk about your wife? Because you can't do in great America polygyny. So you're a married man as an elected official and a leader talking about you would date another woman. This other woman just happens to be your daughter. So you don't even respect your marriage as an elected official to say, I'm good with just my lady right here. You don't big up your lady, as the saying goes. You don't sit there and talk about her because while you was at first in DC, your lady was 14 blocks from where I work in New York. Did you know that? While he first came into office, his wife was living 14 blocks from where I work in Manhattan, in New York. Anytime, certainly when you're a person of power, and you can't keep a woman because women like men with power. That's why sometimes they go through the foolishness that some women go through because her man has clout or power or prestige. So she just goes along with the flow for that moment. But if you can't keep one around you and you in your second, third marriage and you ain't mature enough in relationships to say, I'm good with my one lady right here, because you can't do the Hebrew way in great America about polygyny. You can't be an elected official talking about this my second wife in the United States. So the only thing you're doing with these other women, because you are married, is dating them, which means, you know, I call you, you come over, we have a date, you know, booty call. Because that's the person who said, look at his daughter's body. I will never have my daughter posted up anywhere talking about look at her body. I won't do it to my ex, her mother. There's just certain things you just don't do out of kabod. They have what they called this past weekend in Hashaba, Shabbat Kavod, which means Sabbath of respect or Sabbath of glory or Sabbath of honor. Kabod means respect, honor, glory. That's why when Saul died, his daughter named her son Ikabod. Ikabod means there is no honor because she was in mourning, obviously, for the leader at the time in ancient Israel. Trump said laziness is a trait of blacks. See, when Omarosa was his person to sit there and speak for him, and they asked her, do you think he's a racist? Her comment was, well, he's racial. That was her reply. When they let her go from that position or so, then it was, he's a racist and he's not fit to be in that position. But that was to a great extent already known that he was not fit to be in that position. But her kowtowing to his wickedness did not sit there and help her maintain her job. Next slide. I must have really been typing fast because I spelled character wrong. But let's go on. We get the point. Statements in character. This guy said the Central Park 5 should be executed. This guy said his policies on immigration would have prevented the matter of the World Trade Center in 2001. No, it because see, your definition of the whole policy of immigration, talking about putting some wall up in regards to Mexico. The people in the situation that happened with the Pentagon and the World Trade Center had nothing to do with anyone from Mexico. But this the same person who is also noted for saying that Mexicans are his favorite Puerto Ricans. He does not know who's who. He does not know what's what. He does not know what he presides over. You understand? The school that this dude had in New York was from 2005 to 2010. From 2005 to 2010. Now remember, I was saying we're going to go back here so we can show something for edification purposes, right? Let's look at this here. University of Virginia, that was started by somebody that died in the 1820s, and the school still exists. The school that this dude that's in DC now has is no longer in existence. And his school only lasted 5 years. You know what happened with that school? Brothers and sisters, he wasn't paying the staff. So the staff began to leave. That's what happened with that. All you gotta do is look up the Trump Business School in Manhattan and see what the people were saying about his business practices. He was not paying his staff. He's not a leader in a good light. This dude cannot maintain a marriage. Now, if Steve Harvey is on his third marriage, and it's said because he's on his third marriage that we should not pay attention to him for advice, then the same thing should apply to this person who was known and popular before Steve Harvey was, and he's on his third marriage. So if Steve Harvey should be ignored for relationship advice because he's now in his third marriage, then this guy who's also in his third marriage should also be ignored once it comes down to that. So what good then can we glean from that person that's currently down there? And I saved this one here in regards to the last part for this before the conclusion. It says, let down the white man who was in support of him. What do I mean by that? When this person put a tariff against the thing in China in regards to what happened with the soybean matter, it hurt the farmers in America. His business practices has hurt people, and while he's trying to say, quote unquote, make it great again. When there was a government shutdown, when Obama was in office, Trump stated that a person as a president who has a government shutdown is not qualified to be the president. This person, when Congress did not sit there and support him in regards to the building of the wall in Mexico or to block Mexico, he had a government shutdown. The longest, correct me if I'm wrong, longest government shutdown in history. Now, as a person who flies, I remember flying out of North Carolina one time during that government shutdown. They have what they call a pre-TSA check. That is to say go straight through TSA checking, and you can go quicker than people like myself who wait on the line for the regular TSA scan and so forth and so on. People from TSA Transportation Security Administration that works at the airports that now exists because he talked about the Continental Army going in regards with the airport that didn't exist in the 1700s, but now they do in the 21st century. Okay, let's go on. You had them working without getting paid. Do you know what that's called? Working without getting paid? I'm going to type it in the room first. In Hebrew, we call it abadim, bondage, slavery. Servitude without payment. You had the people working at the airport during the government shutdown that was not getting paid because Congress was not on your side with building a wall after you told the people that that Mexico itself was going to build it. So you led them in a lie, got the people's hopes up. Yeah, they're going to build it. They said they're not building it. So then you turn to Congress. When Congress did not support your building of the wall, you got in your feelings and you shut the government down. But you're a leader. You're not a leader. You operate in your emotions. Leaders don't operate in the emotions. Leaders operate in wisdom. Proverbs chapter 8, where wisdom speaking, says, by me, wisdom, kings reign and princes decree justice. By me, nobles rules and even all the judges of the earth. That's what wisdom in Proverbs chapter 8 says. Right? I'm going to read it. I want to read this for edification purposes, if we will. Proverbs chapter 8. So I won't be misquoting the particular aspect of what we're talking about, right? Chapter 8, verse 1. Doth not wisdom cry and understanding put forth a voice? Now, part of this voice says this. Proverbs 8, verse 15. No, let's start at 14. Counsel is mine and sound wisdom. I am understanding. I have strength. By me, meaning by wisdom. By me, kings reign and princes decree justice. By me, wisdom, princes rule and nobles, even all the judges of the earth. So, in 2019, if you are okay with somebody that's going to have people working for free, when bills still have to get paid, when children still need to be fed, that's a problem. That's called a tyrant, not a leader. That's a despot, not a person of wisdom. If I'm looking for a wife, I'm not going to ask, no disrespect intended, I'm not going to ask the older men that I know that's on their third marriage. I'm not going to ask the men who cannot maintain a marriage. I'm not asking you about that. No more not to be haughty than anyone will ask me about what is the formula in chemistry for something, because I already stated I'm not into science like that. I'm not the person to ask that. You understand? Let's go on and close out. Conclusion. As stated, the purpose of this video is due to the fact that there are Black men and women who actually think that Trump will not only win the election again, which maybe I don't know, but that it is a good thing, amazingly. one brother, to be left anonymous, stated he is, quote, a Trump supporter on his channel on YouTube because they who support Trump support his comedy. Well, that goes to show that Trump supporters see the black man as a comedian, not a person who is an educator. Trump supporters see the black man as needing to be executed without evidence of the crime, and that they come from, S-hole countries. Remember he said that? Or they come from bleep S-word, S-hole countries. So we already done went over the fact of the residence matter back in the 70s with this guy. And in the past 2 years, spoke about people coming from S-hole countries. Back in 1989, 1990, about the Central Park Five, talking about they should be executed. Come to find out they were not guilty of the crime that they were charged with. But there's a person online that has a comedian channel and says that he's in support of Trump because the Trump supporters support his channel. Of course, they're going to support your channel. You're a comedian. You make people laugh, not think. You make people sit there and feel silly and not serious. So of course they're going to support you because they don't think that you're to be taken serious, brother. So with that, have a good night. Peace.